Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world. With self-care strategies from Chinese medicine, functional medicine, Ayurveda, neuroscience, and beyond. I'm your host, Brody Welch, a licensed acupuncturist and transformation catalyst, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Hello and welcome, everyone. Before we dive into the heart of today's episode, I wanted to make sure that you knew that the doors are open for the January round of my Level Up Your Life program. I used to refer to this program as a self-care boot camp or self-care support group because it is this incubator for doing things differently in your life. And these days, I've just gotten away from the word self-care into embodying self-respect. Like, what would it look like to take care of yourself like somebody that you really loved and cherished and respected? How would you move through the world? A lot of times when we think we're addressing little issues like, okay, I'm just going to meditate. How hard is that? Or I'm just going to prioritize my workouts or gratitude practice or writing or creativity or whatever it is that has been on the back burner for too long, and you decide that you want to make that more of a priority. It means rearranging some things in your life, and the consequences can be really not necessarily what we intend. So I wanted to share with you a really sweet note that I got this week from one of my level uppers. She starts off talking about being grateful for my knowledge and my passion for sharing it with others, and how grateful she is for her ability to heal herself, and how my course has sparked deeper interest in Eastern medicine. But the part I really care about and that really stuck out is this quote: "Through your guidance and teachings, I found my voice," and that's underlined. "I still struggle, but I know I have it in me. I have the tools you've provided to work on myself and find deeper layers and clean myself from the, quote, dust and dirt of conditioning I collected over the lifetime." This woman found her voice in part by being in community of people who were encouraging her to do the hard things of like, yeah, you actually can do this seemingly simple daily lifestyle change. But the way that that translated was her confidence level at work and in her relationships to not just sit back in the shadows. And so just watching her evolution was such a cool thing. It was this like unintended consequence of self-care. Another member of the Level Up community reminded me this week why the group was so pivotal in her life. And she said, "The hardest thing I've ever done in my life was to quit my job." She had this really big, high-powered job. And she said, "I had so much identity wrapped around it, and I never would have left if it wasn't for this group." Basically, she realized that the cost was too high, that trying to do it all, trying to be in this role, which she appreciated some aspects of, but didn't really feed her soul, that it didn't really work for her to have such an erratic schedule that wasn't allowing her to live in any sort of rhythm. And it really took seeing the true cost of what she'd been kind of putting up with and the toll that was taking on her health and her happiness and her hormones and her, the rest of her life, to come to the decision that like, wow, this really isn't sustainable. So I mention these things because a lot of times people are like, well, is Level Up for me? Like it sounds pretty boring to talk about like, well, what do you focus on? Well, we focus on super dead simple habits that everyone knows that they need already. But the unique thing about it is that you're doing it in a supportive community. And like, if you've ever done anything hard, you know that it's way easier when you have a group, a circle along with you, whether that is just, speaking in front of a group and having a friend in the audience who you can smile at, or whether that is doing a challenge at the gym where you're supposed to go a certain amount of times, or a detox or anything. It's so much easier in a group. So if you're interested in leveling up any aspect of your healthy habits, now is the time to be heading over to brodywelch.com. That's Brody with an IE and Welch with a CH. Head to the Level Up page and apply. I know it never feels like the right time to take care of yourself, but if you're applying the principles of Chinese medicine and Ayurveda to your life, you're going to want to treat an imbalance as soon as you notice it, because it just gets worse and bigger and more intractable the longer it goes on. So let's do this together. Let us establish the essential habits of self-respecting humans, and let's honor our yin as well as our yang so that we can show up in our lives with presence and power. It is hard to go against the grain of an entire culture by yourself, and you don't have to. We can do it together in community. Head to brodywelch.com/level-up and apply to join. And now on to today's interview, which I hope you will love. Welcome to today's show. I'm your host, Brody Welch, a holistic health coach and Chinese medicine nerd. And this episode is for you today. If you need a reset, if you live in an industrialized society, you're going to want to listen up because we are going to be talking about clean eating and resetting your body, detoxifying, with Dr. Alejandro Junger, who is a New York Times bestselling author of Clean, Clean Gut, Clean Eats, and most recently, Clean 7. Dr. Alejandro Junger has completed his training in internal medicine at New York University Downtown Hospital and his fellowship in cardiology at Lenox Hill Hospital. And after his medical training, he went on to study a bit of Ayurveda with a master practitioner, Narendra Singh, over in India. He brings this Ayurvedic perspective to his functional medicine training, and he's here to share with us a bit about how he helps people reset their health. Dr. Junger, welcome to A Healthy Curiosity.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into doing what you're doing.
So I was born in Uruguay in South America, and I went to medical school there where life was very healthy by default. There were no supermarkets, there was no processed foods, and life was quiet and peaceful. And after I finished medical school, I moved to New York to study internal medicine and cardiology to do my training, which was about 6 years of training. And the fast life there and the bad foods there really threw me off for a spin. And I ended up with 3 diagnoses and 7 prescription medications. I was diagnosed with severe depression, severe allergies, and irritable bowel syndrome. And I just did not want to take 7 pills in order to just function. So I started looking for a different solution for my problems, which took me around the world. I ended up living in an ashram in India for some time, where I was exposed initially to not only Ayurvedic medicine, but Chinese medicine, naturopathy, meditation, and all kinds of different modalities. And we were practicing in a very integrative way. We were seeing patients in a round table with all these practitioners. Everybody would give their opinion of what people had and what we had to do. And then we would choose a combination of whatever everybody was bringing up to the table. Then after that, I came back to the United States, where the symptoms that had somewhat improved in the ashram in India came back with a vengeance. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon the concepts and practices of detoxification and did a very intense detox program myself that I recovered fully. I completely got rid of all my symptoms, but went way beyond that. I was looking and feeling 10 years younger, to the point that everybody was asking me. And I started putting my friends and family and then my patients on similar programs to what I had learned at this spa, where detox was done through juicing and a bunch of supplements and colonics and massages. And at the beginning, when I saw these results, it looked to me a little bit like hokey pokey, but one cannot argue with results. But it wasn't until I found the Institute for Functional Medicine where I learned that detox is not just some hokey pokey fashion of the moment thing, but there's a whole science behind it. And I started understanding the physiology, the biochemistry of what was happening. And it was then when I really came to the awareness that the air we breathe, the water we shower with and drink, the medications we use, the cosmetics we apply on our skins, the cleaning products that we use to clean everything in our homes, but mostly the foods that we eat are loaded with chemicals that alone or in combination can end up being toxic and causing all kinds of symptoms and eventually causing or worsening all kinds of chronic diseases. Now, the amazing thing and the good news is that our bodies are able to detoxify, to convert these toxic molecules from fat soluble into water soluble and from toxic to non-toxic so that they can be eliminated. And this is done in the liver and mostly in every cell in your body, but intensely in the liver, as well as in your intestines through your intestinal flora. They detoxify about 40% of the toxins that you're exposed to. And there's a whole really detailed understanding of how this happens through the enzymes, the P450 enzymes in the liver, and phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. And we have come to understand all the chemical reactions that it takes for the body to do these conversions, these biotransformations, and be able to get rid of these toxins. But there's two main problems why we can't deal with the overload of toxins that we are exposed to. One of them is that energetically our bodies are distracted from doing this because we are eating and digesting all the time. See, when we digest, we consume energy. And you can verify that by having a big meal after which you would feel lethargic and even fall asleep. So digestion steals energy from every other system, especially from thinking, moving, and from detoxifying. The other problem is that our intestines are damaged, our intestinal flora are damaged, our digestion is damaged, and our foods are devoid from nutrients, which is what is needed to do all these conversions. So we end up with a really bad situation. And then I understood how to create the conditions and support the body nutritionally in order to complete and intensify the work of detoxification, which I found the results are kind of magic. For some time I thought the universe had given me a magic wand because I am still helping people with all kinds of problems and using it myself to reset and maintain my wellness for years now.
I appreciate that you get into just that why, because I hear a lot of people kind of object to the idea of needing to detox because aren't our liver and kidneys and gut microbiome, aren't we doing that all the time? But it is really important that it's like, well, we're trying to all the time. And yet it's like, how often do we even leave space in our lives to be in rest and digest and rest and repair mode? So much of the time we are amped up with stress, or we are kind of shoveling down the wrong things into our bodies that we're having to overcome. So it's like it's taking energy just to maintain, much less gain any ground or progress. And it's the kind of thing where if we think about health and disease on a continuum or a spectrum, the idea of moving in the direction of health, it does take effort. It does take a bit of consistent attention in order to steer in that direction.
When you understand the body and how it works and how to promote certain functions and how to grow certain functions, you can do wonders. Like, for example, we all have muscles and bones and tendons and we all know how to move around. But if you know how to eat right and exercise in a certain way, you can achieve results that are almost superhuman, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these people, or like the high level athletes. I mean, this doesn't happen on its own. It happens through knowledge and applying certain concepts and practices that take things to a different level. And it's the same thing with detoxification.
This episode is brought to you by Level Up Your Life, my self-care support group or boot camp for creating the habits that we all need to thrive. But don't take my word for it. Here's what real-life Level Up graduates have to say.
The Level Up course truly transformed my life. I'm healthier, happier, more alive, and I love this new me.
Anyone struggling to put their needs first would benefit from working with Brody. Her coaching style is adaptive, from gentle support to calling you out when necessary.
Doing this work of habit change with a supportive coach and a network of allies allowed the foundation of my daily habits to automate. I'm now free to move through the world with greater ease and to focus my energy on what matters most.
If you're looking for a supportive group that fosters self-compassion as one of the utmost practices so that you can realize the transformations you're looking for in your body and your mind and your spirit, with a mentor and a guide who not only has a wicked amount of knowledge, but it is applied and she intimately shares from her own personal experiences of transformation, and you want to just be loved, come on in.
You can get in on this too. Head to brodywelch.com, go to the Level Up page, and apply to join our next round, which launches in January 2020. Well, let's get into some of the science. I know a lot of people listening are really curious about, you threw out some terms like phase 1 and phase 2 detox. You mentioned that the role of the liver and also the intestines. And so what can we do to support these pathways? Like in general, how can we love on our liver a little bit?
So in general, what we need to do is create the right conditions, right? And the right conditions are giving the digestive system a rest, because when you do that, energy can be redirected to other things. See, for thousands of years, we evolved, and our genes evolved in a way that we lived by intermittent fasting, which was imposed by nature. See, all the animals in the wild, which don't get sick like we do, they are fluctuating between feasting and fasting. They feast when they find food, and they fast until they find the next meal. We used to do the same for thousands of years. It's only recently that we have food available 24/7.
Yeah, and like any kind of food we could possibly want available year round because of things like refrigeration and shipping food all over the world instead of just eating regionally and seasonally.
Well, now you're going deep into detail, but yes, of course. And we're not eating food anymore. We're eating edible products.
True enough. Yes.
So yeah, the resting of the digestive system is really important. And sometimes when you go into the fasting mode, that is when really things are accelerated, right? On the other hand, you also have to provide the right nutrients for the liver and other cells in the body to be able to do all this work of detoxification, add certain molecules to the toxic molecules. See, when a toxic molecule comes in to your blood, which is mostly through your intestines, through absorption, but also through your skin and through the air, 90% of them are only dissolvable in fat. They're lipophilic. They cannot be dissolved in water. So they look for fat tissue in order to stick to it, right? So where is the fat tissue? In your brain, in your breast, in your prostate, in your thyroid, in your liver. And if you think about it, these are the organs that are, rampant with cancers and other problems. So the body has to chemically or biochemically convert these molecules from fat soluble into water soluble, because the body only knows how to eliminate things through water, through breath, through the moistened breath, through urine, through sweat, and through feces. Now that is done through in 2 steps called phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. That is mostly done in the liver, but not only, right? So these molecules come in and go through phase 1 detoxification. And the result is what's called an intermediate metabolite, which is even more toxic than the toxic molecule itself. So immediately has to go through phase 2 detoxification. Now, phase 1 is done by the cytochrome P450 enzymes in the liver. Phase 2 is done by a different set of enzymes called, in reactions called methylation, sulfation, glucuronidation. So all these reactions, they need certain nutrients, and those nutrients have to be provided whenever you eat. So how do you make sure that these nutrients are provided? Well, you need good protein and you need lots of other nutrients that are mostly available through fruits, vegetables, and other whole foods, seeds, nuts. And as a practical advice for people that are listening, you need to know that the more colorful your diet, the more for sure you will get the nutrients needed for the different reactions of detoxification. So eat the rainbow. White and tan foods are not going to take you there. So
I love it.
yeah.
Yes, it's really true. And I love that you mentioned breath. I feel like that is so overlooked as a source of our ability to clear toxins. I mean,
Well,
not just,
think
yeah,
about this. Think about this. Your cells produce energy by burning sugar, by burning glucose through the Krebs cycle, and the end result is CO2 and water. Now, the CO2 leaves the cell and is dissolved in blood into carbonic acid. When that blood passes through the lung, the carbonic acid fizzles again and goes back into a gas form and is exhaled as CO2. This is detoxification basic.
yes.
This is detoxification. Breathing out is detoxifying.
Yeah. Well,
And if you stop for 1 minute, you die.
Exactly. And it's also really, I've been fascinated recently by this concept of qi, right, which is often translated as the life force in Chinese medicine. But actually,
Prana in Ayurvedic medicine.
yes, exactly. But the a really mechanical way of thinking about translating it would be gas, right? That just the idea of breathing in, like that, and there's this notion of gasotransmitters functioning as neurotransmitters in the body, things like nitric oxide. Just something that I think is fascinating. That's currently being researched. But basic qigong, right? That idea of taking in what you need from the air and exhaling what you don't need anymore, like just having a breathing practice several times a day, just as we need to be eating several times a day, and then not. But yes, like breathing consciously and breathing strategically can help us eliminate what we don't need anymore from the body.
Absolutely.
I'm curious about, you said good protein. How would you define good protein?
So, protein from natural sources, protein that comes from either plants or nuts or seeds or fish that is caught in the sea or rivers as opposed to farmed, or meat from cattle, from cows that are grown eating grass and free under the sun, as opposed to through raised in feedlots and given antibiotics and hormones, or chickens that are free running around and eating worms from the grass, as opposed to in feedlots where they're also given all kinds of chemicals. So those are what I refer to as good proteins.
Okay. Yeah. It's a lot of times people talk about like just really a lot of words get kicked around like good fat or good protein. And so it's always just sounds like what you're saying is basically anything that has protein in its natural state, a whole food, the nuts and seeds and beans and things like that in the vegetable kingdom, plus a food from animal sources that hasn't been subject to a bunch of contamination and torture.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, fantastic. Also, I tend to, honestly, like I get a lot of pitches for people who want to be on the podcast to basically hawk a product, and I'm pretty selective about who I have on the show. But I'm noticing, just to play devil's advocate for a second, is one of the things that Ayurveda and functional medicine have in common is this emphasis on whole foods found in nature. So why do we need a prepackaged shake as I know that is part of your program? Like, why not just go on a whole foods fast?
We don't need a prepackaged product.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is this, I am here to help, right? And I wrote a book, my first book, Clean, in which I taught people how to do the program by themselves without needing to buy anything, right? Mm-hmm. But the number of people that are either not interested, they don't have time, don't have the commitment, or just fail at doing it was too large, so that I started looking for a solution that was more user-friendly, because it's better to do it with a prepackaged thing than not to do it at all. And my hope, and I actually achieved that, is that by doing this, detox program with prepackaged stuff, I get people to a state in which their taste buds change. And then when they eat broccoli, it's like eating ice cream. And I get them to feel good, that they understand that nothing tastes as good as feeling good feels. And I get them started on a path that, most people never go back to what they were doing before.
That's actually pretty funny that your program is like a gateway drug for healthy eating.
Yes.
I think it's great. I mean, because so often we're in this binary of I either need to do it perfectly or I'm not going to do it at all.
Yes.
And so the idea of giving people an on-ramp of, okay, here's a structured way to clean up your diet with this bit of an assist of something that has been put together that's purchasable, that might be enough to show people what a difference it could make to be eating in a clean way. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about what people would be eating and eliminating in your Clean 7 program.
So the Clean 7 program has two aspects to it as it relates to what you're eating or not eating. The first aspect comes from functional medicine, where it's called the elimination diet. And these are eliminating foods that through functional medicine we have learned are either allergenic or cause other kinds of food sensitivities, are acid forming, are mucus forming, or in any way deter or cause an imbalance in the detoxification processes. See, I am focused on detoxification. So all the foods there are not that we eliminate doesn't mean that they have to be eliminated forever. For example, when you eat grapefruits, they contain something that blocks phase 2 detoxification and allows phase 1 detoxification to go on unblocked. So as I said, there's a intermediate metabolite that is formed in phase 1, and if it doesn't go directly into phase 2, you can accumulate this metabolite, and that's going to be more toxic than not. So you are creating a disbalance or an imbalance between phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. So these foods in the general picture are the 5 big ones, dairy, gluten, sugar, coffee, and alcohol, right? But there's a few other ones like grapefruit, oranges, and nightshades, right? So those are the ones that you eliminate through our understanding from functional medicine called the elimination diet. And then each person that's the Clean 7 program is asked to answer a questionnaire through which you find out what your current dosha imbalance is, right? The dosha is a system of Ayurveda in which you understand the principle in Ayurveda that everything in the planet is made of has the influence of the 5 elements energetically, right? Fire, water, air, earth, and ether. So does your body, and so does the foods that you eat, right? So each one of us and each food has all the elements, but there's some elements that are more prominent or more dominant than others. And the dominant ones are the ones that are most likely to go out of balance and cause disease. So you finding out what your dosha is allows you to further eliminate the foods that will throw or be prone to throw your dosha out of balance, which further benefits on top of the benefits that the elimination diet is giving you, and in a personalized way. So we go a little further than what functional medicine alone does by adding this Ayurvedic medicine principle.
Got it. Do you have different recommendations based on what dosha is out of balance?
In the book, you have a way to determine your dosha, and then you have a whole bunch of recipes for each dosha. So there's a list of foods that you are not allowed, and you add those to the elimination foods that are the same for everybody. So then you get the list of foods that you are not allowed for your dosha, and then there's a bunch of recipes for foods that are dosha specific for everybody.
Great. Great to know. And so what kind of conditions, you mentioned it feels like waving a magic wand. And so what kinds of conditions have you seen benefit from going through your protocol?
Wow. Well, so people, first of all, start looking better. They start, their skin starts getting better. They even end up with this glow that others notice, and it's quite remarkable. People sleep better. People have better bowel movements, better digestion. Hair gets stronger and stops falling. So these are like very common things that happen to people. But then, I've seen, and I have to really make this distinction that in 1 week, you are not going to resolve the problems as when you do a 21-day program like the one in my first book, right? But it's a taste. The problem is that most people are not going to commit to 21 days. This is what I found. Even though my program is life transforming, the 21-day program, I found out I wasn't making a dent. So I came up with this program and looked for 10 years on how to accelerate and potentiate detoxification so that somebody can get some really good results in 1 week, right? But it is the beginning to lowering and normalizing your blood pressure, getting off the type 2 diabetes medications, aches and pains go away, irritable bowel syndrome is resolved. I mean, all kinds of things you begin to reverse by doing the 7-day program.
And it seems like if you were in it for 7 days and you're feeling good, that you could conceivably keep going, correct?
Listen, that's my hope. In India, I once met this very famous guru that people used to come to see from all over the world, and he used to give people jewelry, all kinds of, chachis, right? And then somebody once asked him, why do you give people these superficial things, right? And he used to say, well, I give people what they want in the hope that one day they will want what I really have to give them, right? So in a way, I give people a short program in the hope that they will never go back to what they were doing before that was keeping them sick.
Beautiful. So the book is Clean 7, and I imagine it will be widely available. If people want to learn more about your work, where would you suggest that they head?
So they can go to my Instagram account, Alejandro Junger, Dr. Alejandro Junger, Dr. Alejandro Junger, and then my Facebook account, Alejandro Junger MD, or www.cleanprogram.com, which is the company where we sell the kits that people can use if they don't have time or interest to go and buy their whole foods and prepare everything. And I always say that is the preferred mode. I'm not here just to do business. I want you to get healthy. And if you are inspired and you have the time and the commitment to do that, I recommend that you do that way more over buying anything that's prepackaged, right? But if you don't have the time and you want to do it in a user-friendly way, then at least you have this kind of solution.
And that is why you made the cut to appear on this show. So yeah, I really appreciate the work that you're doing and how you're making it an accessible on-ramp for people to take care of themselves, to detox, to reset their ability to handle living in the modern world. So thank you so much for sharing the work that you're doing and a bit of your story with us here today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening today. To check out the show notes, get on my email list, or drop me a line, head to brodywelch.com. That's Brody with an IE and Welch with a CH. I'd love to hear from you. If you learned something new or feel inspired to try something different in your life, I'd love for you to pay it forward by sharing this episode with a friend who you think could also benefit and give them a reason to listen. You'll be helping to create a world where we encourage each other to embody self-respect. Till next time, be good to yourself.